I'll just once again briefly introduce myself. Yesterday, in fact, I was trying to introduce, but it was just left midway. So as I was mentioning, I'm a professional compere, and if I can take a little liberty, just wanted to spill some beans of laughter in the morning, and I think nobody minds laughing in the morning or having those smiles on the faces. And as I said, I'm a professional compere, so this is the way I like doing things, making people smile. So these two guys, and all of you are, again I can take a liberty because I think I'm the only 2 and 3 of us who are there, the females in this entire gathering. So 2 men were talking to each other, and as it is, usually, you know, your conversation goes and it lands back to your wives. So they were talking about the wives, saying something or the other, my wife is like this and that and that. So this guy asked, what is the name of your wife? And he says, Google Kaur. I said, Google Kaur? This is a very different name. He said, मैं जहाँ भी जाता हूँ मुझे ढूंढी लेती है. That is why. So, you know, this is how technology is becoming. People have started having technological names also and getting modernized. And the topic of today, the first session, is also modernization, but this is modernization of special forces. So I now invite and introduce to all of you the chairperson of this session, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, AVSM, NM and BAR, Deputy Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, Headquarters IDS. He has over 2,700 hours of flying on 18 different types, mostly from aircraft carrier Vikrant and Virat on Sea Harrier. He has held command of 2 Sea Harrier squadrons and air station at Goa. During his long naval career, the flag officer has commanded the Coast Guard ship Rani Jindan during Op Pavan. He was the fleet operation officer of Western Fleet during Op Parakram. In the flag rank, he has held appointments of Flag Officer Naval Aviation, Flag Officer Commanding Goa Area, and Assistant Chief of Naval Staff Air. He has also held the command of the sword arm of the Navy, the Western Fleet. I invite him here on the dais as the chairperson of the session. I now introduce and invite our first speaker, former General Officer Commanding 1 Corps Indian Army, Lieutenant General retired T.S. Pathak, AVSM, YSM and BAR. During his career of nearly 4 decades, the General Officer was exposed to combat situations at various ranks, held various command, staff and instructional assignments. He has commanded 9 para-commandos when the battalion was employed in provision of security cover to the Prime Minister after the assassination of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and then in Siachen Glacier and Sri Lanka. He has been the brigade commander of 102 Infantry Brigade, Siachen Brigade, General Officer commanding 10 Infantry Division in Jammu and Kashmir, and General Officer commanding 1 Corps. We already joined here on the dais by Brigadier retired Surinder Singh, our second speaker. He fought the 65 war in Khemkaran sector, 71 war in Bangladesh, has considerable experience in counter-insurgency operations in Sri Lanka, Northeast, Jammu Kashmir and in Punjab. He has considerable command, staff and instructional experience. Has commanded an independent artillery brigade, was deputy commander of an infantry brigade in Sri Lanka, raised and commanded a mountain artillery regiment in Kashmir Valley. He was a DS at Defense Services Staff College and instructor at the School of Artillery for 2 tenures. He retired in September 2001 after over 37 years of service in the Army. Currently, he is a Vice President of Special Projects Division of MKU Private Limited. And I now invite the next speaker of this session, Nicholas Mihal, Deputy Country Head, Saffron Sejm. He specializes in international relations. He holds a master's degree in defense, geostrategy, and industrial dynamics. He has worked for the French Ministry of Defense as an analyst. He particularly worked on the evolution of warfare in the 21st century, helping to understand the impact of technological explosion, digital revolution, hyper-terrorism, proliferation, and asymmetrical oppositions. He wrote a report on nuclear deterrence after 9/11 in partnership with the Foundation for Strategic Research. He joined Saffron Group in 2004 and since then has been actively involved in business deployment, defense and security with the 3 services and MHA paramilitary forces, partnerships and industrial cooperation. I invite him as the next speaker of this session. And for the further proceedings of the session, I now hand over to Vice Admiral Sinha.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, my wife's name is not Google search or google.com as she was mentioning in the morning, and therefore I am yet to be located, and particularly when you come to a seminar where people are talking about special forces who tend to operate in a very stealth mode, I would rather not get located by Google. Well, having said that, I believe that you have had a very intense discussion yesterday on the concepts and employment of special forces. And today we turn on to an issue which is as important, if not more, which will be probably the modernization strategy which the special forces, particularly in the Indian context, which is required. In fact, I have a little different view. If you see as to what is happening in and around the world, there's no big war, but there are theaters where the special forces are more active than the more conventional and visible forces. And I believe that a time is not very far when there will be requirement of seamless integrity amongst the special forces of various countries in one area of operation. If we have to maintain or if we have to take a collective responsibility of peace and stability, I mean, these are the words which are very frequently used, and therefore I will like to use this word. And the world of multipolarity, it is not possible for one single country to take on these tasks. And if you see what is happening in what has happened in last month or so, there seems to be simmering turmoil in more than one theater. And I don't see this sort of settling down very quickly. And therefore, for today's seminar, I think is very well timed. And I believe that there is a reason for us to believe that seamless integrity of the special forces, not only within the country, but amongst the countries who will be responsible for bringing peace and stability in a region, is going to increase. And therefore, we need to look at this entire thing in that light. It's well known that the special forces operate without support from either the artillery or any air power, as far as the firepower is concerned. At the very basic level, personal weapons should be very, very light. They should be water resistant. I'm being a marine man, I keep making a point in every forum. Must have a small barrel and must be very reliable, accurate, but should be able to deliver maximum punch. Apart from weapons, there is a wide variety of equipment which could be considered. Emerging technologies enable the special force operative to become very self-contained, fully networked and enhance their lethality while ensuring their own survival. So as I look at it, I know there are very experienced special forces practitioners here, but I think the first thing is the survival of the special force while he maintains his stealth. Second issue is having a very high degree of lethality. And thirdly, in today's scenario, as was mentioned in the introduction, that we need to be networked with various agencies so that your targeting becomes that much easier. And I'm sure we're going to hear more of it when our speakers come. As far as the employment of special forces are concerned, I was fortunate to be participating in the Operation Pawan, which took place in Sri Lanka, and the first time that the very nascent Indian naval marine commandos were blooded into action. There's a famous study, of course, General Kalkat is sitting here, I need not labor on this, but it'll be good to recall the scuttling of the large number of boats in the Jaffna Lagoon by the IMSF, which led to, ultimately it led to saving many lives in that area, which we were not aware at one point in time as to where is the fire coming from. And we had a whole night operation where the IMSF was launched into action. They went underwater for a long distance, did what they were supposed to do, and happily came back all alive. As far as the Mumbai attack is concerned, it was for everybody to see. It was on the very well televised. The media really brought it out, and therefore it has highlighted the importance, or maybe the lack of it, in at least our scenario, as to whether do we have the right equipment, do we have the right processes, and a lot has happened after that, which I'm sure the agencies who are involved, they are addressing these issues. So the state-of-the-art weapons and equipment is very important attribute of an effective SF team. And equipment to be allocated would be governed by the nature of mission and, of course, the technology which is available. Notwithstanding, the SF teams always prefer to travel light because everything is on their own. I am told that as many as 40 specialized items have been identified for a typical SF soldier. Correct me if I am wrong. I only pick it up from what comes out in the magazines. High-tech systems and weapons have the potential to provide tactical surprise and leverage, which could prove to be very critical for success of a mission. And raising and equipping special forces is it's expensive. It requires fair amount of funds because you're looking at a system which is which can get outdated in a month's time possibly. So important thing is that we should ensure that we get the bang for the buck, and I'm sure that we all have a very huge wish list, but we need to, being a sort of perspective plan in IDS headquarters, all I'll say is that look at the budget and then see what best you can buy. We are not a country which has got huge amount of spare money to spend, but I'm sure that the requirements are very well understood by people who take these decisions. We have representation here from the industry, and I'm sure that the speakers will put forward this point as to what is on offer and what is likely to happen in the next 5-10 years. Well, let me stop here and let me just revisit the ground rules. I've got very distinguished speakers here, 3 of them. I will request that if the talk can be limited to 20-25 minutes. And what I'll do is when you have 5 minutes to go, I'll do a soft press of the bell, just in case you have lost track of time. And thereafter, we'll have some time for discussion. There is a little tendency, this only for the audience, that we tend to sort of veer off from the point that we want to make. So I would request that address your question to the speaker. Be very specific. Idea is to tap the expertise of people who are sitting in the audience as well as on the panel, so that we all gain by this collective wisdom. Just a word of caution for the serving officers who are practitioners of SF or planners. how much is in public domain and how much needs to be in public domain, just be cautious about when you're talking these things. So with those words, let me just welcome General Pathak, who has been introduced. Doesn't require any introduction, but we look forward to hearing him. General Pathak, sir.
Chairman, distinguished audience, talking about modernization of special forces, well, the way I look at it, what exactly is modernization? To my way of thinking, it is a co-evolution of concepts, organizations, and technology. You can't do one without the other. It's not technology alone. Changes in any one of these should trigger a response in the other. It happens even in the corporate world. Businesses, once they acquire technology, they find they've got to restructure their organizations because to make optimum use of it. And what comes out as the end product is entirely different from the original. The same thing applies to special forces. Or take it whatever you like, it's not just technology. If you're going to get new systems, it must trigger a change in your organization. A new or evolution of a concept should trigger a change in your organization and allow you to get higher end technology. Now, these are correlated, and unless we can understand this, we are not talking about any modernization. Along in this, yesterday we spoke about special forces and others and the likely challenges. I would like to just recount a small African fable. Every morning, the gazelle gets up and he realizes that he's got to run fast, faster than the fastest lion if he's got to survive. At the same time, the lion also gets up in the morning. He says, I must also run fast, faster than the slowest gazelle if I don't have to die of hunger. Now, you got to decide who's the gazelle and where's the lion. In the adversary, and these roles, you got to decide you are the lion or the gazelle. And is the terrorist the gazelle and the special forces or security forces are the lion, or vice versa? Now this is something that you got to take your own call. One thing you got to remember, with globalization and technology available and the internet, there's a very common playing field. The non-state actor, as also the state actors, have got technology, whatever they want. For the non-state actor, or the irregular, the investment is the least. He selects a target with the tools that are available. He invests in one odd weapon, selects a small nucleus of 3-4 people, and launches them. On the other hand, special forces and the security forces have got to look at so many targets, so much to respond to, and a big budget. He's got to equip a whole range of capabilities to defeat that one action of the non-state actor. And he's got to equip a large amount of people. So the budget is a factor that cannot be wished away when you are looking at modernization. Another issue which I would like to give my mind on Actually, the special forces and special operations are a rather imprecise thing, and especially as far as the Indian context is concerned. It's rather difficult to define. A lot has been said about special forces yesterday. Let me look at, to my way of thinking, what is a special operation? I would say it's a high-risk venture. There's no doubt about it. Its success depends on intelligence inputs of a very high order. I don't think there's any dispute about it. Yes, it involves a very discreet use of manpower and firepower. This is something that we've got to bear in mind. Discreet use of men and fire. Success and failure. Yesterday, I think General Lamb said, yes, you got to condition your employer about failure. I would look at this same thing in two aspects. In the conventional field, if a special operation succeeds, the main plan goes through without a hit, like a hot knife through butter. But should it fail, the main plan should still succeed on its own merit. So the special forces or the special operation is like a force multiplier. In the unconventional side, is there a failure? Or we talk about Operation Eagle Claw, that is a failure. Yes, in certain respects it was a failure. But it is also said that the inputs reaped, especially in relation to the radar and the other frequencies of the Soviet Union, were tremendous intelligence inputs that they received during the operation as part of Eagle Claw, because the Americans were as worried about the Soviets up north. Now, so maybe a special forces, special operation is not a failure in the term that we look at it. And lastly, a special operation does not bank on reserves. You cannot retrieve a situation, or like in conventional conflict, use of reserves. So this is the way I look at a special operation. Now, keeping this in mind, and yesterday we spoke about full spectrum dominance. Now, if you take the violence scale from 0 to 10, stone pelting that the Indian subcontinent has seen in Kashmir would be at 0, and use of weapons of mass destruction, or what General Lamb said, weapons of mass disorder, would be at the upper end. And special operations have got to be launched in this from scale of 0 to 10. Coming closer to the subject that I got to address is look at modernization in the firepower and mobility dimensions. Now, firepower and mobility are two basic principles of all warfare. Do you trade one against the other or whatever? But let's look at firepower. I have no desire to go into specifics of any weapon system, but the way I look at it, I will address this issue at 3 levels: the individual, crew-served entity, and others. The way I look at it, for an individual, he's going to have a multi-function combat weapon, which is capable, to my way of thinking, firing kinetic energy as also a high explosive round, a fragmentation capability. His weapon should integrate a area weapon suppression capability. It should be modular in design. I would also prefer, if possible, it should have range estimation and designation facility, as also a ballistic computer for ruling out errors. The question is it possible? Maybe a modular design may allow these functions, maybe it may not. You may have everything coming, but to build in sensors and ballistic computer capability may not just be possible. Maybe not now, maybe a couple of years later. I would look at individual capability as also the ability to bring down maximum ordnance on the target. Coming down to our context, where we have a number of special forces, I would look at, my recommendation would be at least they should be interoperable with each other and have one for the individual, one weapon philosophy. It will cut down on logistics, because logistics at a later stage, at some stage, will play a very important part in sustenance. Looking at the crew-served weapon systems, again, I would, to my way of thinking, they should be lightweight. Again, have suppression capability of personnel at a range of about 2,000 meters. And similarly, a destructive capability against material targets and light armored vehicles to a range of 2,000 meters. One single weapon giving you this capability. And it should be adaptable for a vehicular and